My name is Michael Ruckman. I'm the president and CEO of Senteo. We are a company that does consulting and education around the topics of customer experience, relationship management, and loyalty. We do a lot of work in financial services. We also work in telecom, retail, hospitality, and so on. And what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today is where we are finding our optimism. So if I go back to March of this year and think about what was going through our heads when everybody started talking about this virus and how bad it was going to be and so on, and we got to a point, it was March 12th and 13th, we had a live conference with a few hundred attendees, and I thought, this is probably going to be the last time we do something like this for a while. And it turned out to be true. So for the last 7 months, we've been working like this. And it turns out that in the beginning, I thought this is really going to be bad. And over the course of about 6 to 8 weeks, and together with the Senteo team, we just completely changed our entire vision on what this meant for us and what it meant for our clients and what it meant for everybody, really. And so that's kind of what I wanted to share with you today, a few different thoughts about how this could actually play out. I mean, it hasn't been getting better quickly, like everybody thought. And there are probably going to be some very long-term effects from the last 7 months and whatever the next 4 to 6 months might look like. Hopefully by that time there will be some form of widespread vaccine and so on. But I just kind of wanted to share some ideas with you today. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the presentation and we'll go through some of these things. So, and just so you know, if you're writing in the chat, feel free to write questions or comments in the chat session, but I can't see them while I'm presenting, so I'll get to them at the very end, and I'm hoping that we actually have some time to chat at the end. So the title of my presentation is What Shopping Centers and Retailers Need to Know About Customer Experiences in the Time of COVID-19. We're just going to blow right past that and get into some lessons that we've learned. And one of the things that I really enjoy talking about lately is how easy it is, or how easy it has been, to change some long-standing habits. So for me, about the second week of the quarantine, I thought, well, we clearly need to buy a treadmill. So now I have a habit of, it took about 6 to 8 weeks to make it a real habit, but now I have a habit of every morning I get up, I have a cup of coffee, and I get on the treadmill for an hour. And that's where I watch my news and prepare my mind for the day and so on. And when we think about the habits that we have formed over the last 6, 7 months of behaving differently, thinking differently, viewing the world differently, and so on, there are going to be some long-term implications. And even the most, let's say, the most difficult habits to form, Jeremy Dean in his book, Making Habits, Breaking Habits, talks about, about a half a year to form these habits. So unfortunately, or fortunately, there are going to be some long-lasting new habits that have come out of this global pandemic. And I wanted to do a little kind of game of myth versus fact. So even if you talk to me 8 months ago, 9 months ago, and said, hey, we're going to go to 100% remote working model, I would say absolutely not possible. We are consultants, we're educators, we need an audience, we need to be able to present in front of people and engage them and so on. And some of our education programs, I honestly believe they're actually more effective over Zoom than the ones that we do in real life. So, there were a lot of myths around how to manage businesses and how to manage people, and no, it's impossible to have a remote workforce and so on. And what I can honestly say is all of that was just a myth, because it turns out that we all seem to be working very well remotely, and most companies have learned how to deal with this, and they've learned very quickly that they have to actually restructure their work processes and their performance measures to be based on the quality and the timeliness of a work product, and not necessarily on how many hours somebody's sitting in a chair. So we actually have one client that went to the extent of monitoring how long their employees were connected to their VPN as a measure of whether or not they were working. And we said that really has to change quite quickly. So work needs to be divided up and distributed amongst the workforce in a way that they understand this is the desired work product in terms of quality and detail and so on. And this is the time frame in which I need to complete this product. And then you can pretty much allow people to manage themselves. This and kind of there's a psychological side to this as well, which if we're thinking about, I'm in my home environment, if some boss somewhere is trying to micromanage me while I'm in my home environment, that's a very uncomfortable thing to be thinking about. So really the companies that have been successful with this remote work model have very quickly learned how to define and distribute the desired work product and communicate the time frame in which it needs to be completed, and then allow people to manage themselves. If they want to do their work at 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's up to them. Another myth fact scenario is this idea about engagement. Well, you have to bring employees into the office, otherwise they don't understand social context and team dynamic and the ability to develop interpersonal relationships. And this is true to a certain extent. But if we look at the amount of time that people are working individually versus how much time they're spending working in groups, really the amount of time that people spend working individually, depending on their position, is far too much to justify bringing people to an office all day, every day. So we bring you to an office because we need you to engage and understand social context and have interpersonal relationships, but then you're sitting at a desk working by yourself for 90% of the day. Well, that doesn't justify that. So now we have this ability to design a different model where we can design engagement models, but to maximize team dynamics, social context, community building, all these different things, but we can actually have that in a hybrid or remote work model. So, and to a large extent, it can even be done remotely. So we have managed to keep, and this was a natural for us because we have people in different countries all over the planet. So we de facto are already working in this format for a large portion of our time, even before the pandemic hit. So the third one I wanted to talk about is this approach to leadership. And this is another little myth fact thing, that leaders have to lead by getting their people together and being a role model and so on. Well, that doesn't necessarily have to happen in the real world, in the physical world. So we can still be good leaders over a virtual platform, and that doesn't necessarily degrade the leadership quality. What we are seeing, which is very interesting, is the decoupling of management and leadership. So if people are self-managing because we're designing their work in pieces of work product with a time frame that's acceptable and so on, and they're able to manage their work and their productivity on their own, then we no longer need people micromanaging and making sure that's not standing over somebody to make sure that they're at their desk and they're working diligently and so on. We can actually allow people to self-manage, and then leaders are leading. They're setting examples, they're creating a vision, they're engaging, they're guiding people in the direction of that vision. And this is a big change. So the idea that leadership requires management is kind of challenged here. And what we're seeing is that leaders need to develop an individual approach and design their approach for the challenges and the requirements of this new business model that's coming out of it. So there's going to be a lot more virtual contact and so on. So here's some interesting things to think about. If the new model is working effectively, and people are able to work remotely 70, 80, 90% of the time for a lot of jobs, then why go back to the old model? And the reason I'm bringing this up in the context of retail is that there's going to be a lot of changes to the amount of office space that's needed in the future, and the amount of people that are coming into city centers and coming into office districts, and those are the people, and that's the traffic that's feeding a lot of retail and shopping centers as well. So if this movement of people from home to work isn't happening every day, then all of a sudden there's a dramatic impact on retail and shopping centers. And this is why I wanted to bring this up. The motivation is here. for companies to keep people on some type of hybrid remote work model. The cost savings will be significant for companies, which is providing dramatic motivation. And this requires this transformation in the approach to work, the management model, how we engage employees, how we design employee experiences, and so on. So there's a lot of change that needs to happen here, but still there's a direct impact to retail and shopping centers. And that's why I wanted to bring this up. So there have been a number of failed case studies over the course of the last, let's say, 8-10 years in terms of how businesses have failed at mass migrating employees to a remote work model. Here's a case from Yahoo, Marissa Mayer, who became the CEO in 2012. She immediately thought, oh, great, at Google, this works wonderfully. Let's just push more and more people to a remote work model. And less than a year later, she decided to pull everybody back. And the main reason was they were having problems not only with efficiency, but also with loyalty. And it turns out if people are pushed out into a remote work model and not engaged well with the organization, that is, if they do not end up with the social context, interpersonal relationships, and team dynamic that come from employee engagement models, then there's going to be problems. And they had problems not only with engagement and loyalty, but also with general efficiency of remote work. And this was largely due to the fact that they didn't change the work model. They did not change how work was divided up and distributed amongst different people. They didn't change the management model, so people largely felt like they were being micromanaged in their home environment, which doesn't make much sense. And they also really didn't have any significant changes to the organizational structures, to employee engagement models, designing good employee experiences, and so on. So this really kind of boils down to just a flop. Yeah. Another one which is interesting is Upwork, which is a freelance platform in the United States. I think they're actually global, but the largest portion of their business is in the United States. And what's really interesting here is they actually found that they had to work with and teach Fortune 500 companies how to effectively manage their relationships with freelancers. And the problem is that freelancers, they're in their own environment. They're taking project work over a platform designed for freelancers. So usually the amount of work is defined, and the time frame in which the work needs to be completed is defined. And freelancers are used to working on their own. They're being their own boss. And then you've got these Fortune 500 company managers that are coming in and saying, well, we need you to fill in a timesheet every day, and we need to see the results of your work every day to make sure you're productive, and so on. And they're saying, well, why? I'm a freelancer. This is why I don't work in a corporate environment. So Upwork actually had to have training programs to work with Fortune 500 companies so that they could be more effective bridging the gap between this corporate environment and a freelance remote work environment. So really interesting case study. And one of my favorites is actually a successful case study. Ricardo Semler, the company is called Senteo in Brazil, and they actually wanted to define and design and implement a self-managed work environment. So there's a book about it, and there's also a really great TED Talk on it, his book is called The 7-Day Weekend. But he actually kind of approached this from saying that, being the boss is kind of a pain in the butt. Like, why do I want to have to manage all these people? And they went about doing exactly the things that I was talking about, which is designing the work product to be specific, measurable, and manageable, and designing so that should be done within a specific time frame. And they even went so far as to say, hey, listen, if we expect 57 widgets from you, and you've done that by Wednesday, well, go to the beach, because if you produce more, you're also creating an anomaly in the system, and therefore we don't need that. That just creates more stress on the system if somebody does something out of the ordinary. So do your 57 and then go enjoy the rest of your week. So this is kind of a really interesting thing. They actually also found that they had a hard time finding people that could easily adapt to this environment. So they actually opened 3 schools in Brazil that also have no rules, so to speak. The children define their own rules. The children enforce their own rules, and the adults are there largely as facilitators for the environment. And it turns out, for anybody that has kids that's tried this before, in a lot of situations, if you ask kids to define their own rules and to define their own punishments, they'll choose things that are more strict and harsher than what we might choose for them, being the soft parents that we are. So this is an interesting concept to allow people to make their own rules, and then also to allow them to enforce their own rules. So now, if we think about what's happening, gradually people have been coming back. Gradually retail is coming back, businesses are working, employees are coming back to work, but people are still a bit afraid here. So there's still a large portion of the population that might be saying, hey, I'm afraid to go out and be in large groups of people. And I'm afraid because that person has their mask under their chin and it's obviously not doing anything, right? So there are the people that aren't afraid. There are the people that don't believe in the science and whatever, that's fine. But there are also the people who are afraid, who are trying to kind of stay safe and who don't want to get this. And those are the people that probably aren't coming to your physical locations as often as they did in the past. And if they are, what we're calling safety theater becomes very important. So it's not good enough to be safe. You have to show that you're safe, and you have to actually let people see that you are safe. So if somebody touched my plate and didn't have a glove on, or if somebody's got their mask under their nose, so that doesn't really build the confidence that I'm in a safe environment. And that discomfort is likely to work on the parts of our brain that want to protect us from danger and, and probably prevent us from coming back the next time. So these are things that are going to be important. We need to think about safety theater in any retail environment or restaurant and so on. We need to make sure that our staff they actually have the mask on properly, and they're actually wearing gloves, and we're actually maintaining distance and so on. These things are going to be important for the subconscious mind of our shoppers, our guests, and so on. Would be good to have masks and hand sanitizer available for people as well. If I had a restaurant, I would probably make my kitchen a showcase and put cameras up so that people could see exactly how careful we are being. Have your chef in like a hazardous materials suit or something. Who knows? So these things are going to be important. Just giving the perception of safety and following the rules and order is going to help people to relax. And being relaxed and not afraid will help them to come back to your environment more often. Another thing to think about is a remote experience. So we've been playing with this, and we actually are working with one luxury retailer, not Louis Vuitton, but we're working with one luxury retailer specifically on this. So if you think about the type of experience that you would have going into a store, I mean, there are the pieces of it, any store really, but there are the pieces of an experience, a well-designed customer experience that are engaging, right? We're getting our senses engaged. We're able to walk up and touch that sweater or those jeans, or pick up the shoe and look at them and think about what it would be like to wear them in this day or that day or whatever. If you're in a Louis Vuitton, they offer you a glass of champagne or a cappuccino or something like that. And you're really immersed in this environment. And that is not happening online. So the sales are suffering, really. First of all, because none of us are getting dressed as often as we were in the past, and so on. But the other reason behind it is websites are just not as engaging as the physical environment. And the opportunity for impulse purchases, you go in for one thing and you leave with five, because you realized how well the jeans go with that sweater and those shoes and so on. So it's causing some problems because the shopping experience is not as engaging as online. And what we actually think is that we can deal with some of the potential losses by creating hybrid experiences. And we were actually playing with this a while ago, where you could have a person going through the store on video, showing you different things and saying, listen, you know what, we're going to pack all these up and send them to you with a courier. And the courier could even pick up a split of champagne or a cappuccino from Starbucks on the way to enhance the experience. And the courier comes to your house and you try everything on and dance around in it and figure out if you like it. And they take back the things that you don't want, and you keep the things that you do want. So here's a new hybrid type shopping experience. And that could even extend to some type of hybrid online television kind of channel where you've got a show going, and they're showcasing and models and all kinds of things. And at some point you push a button and now you're on an individual video with an actual consultant, and they pick out the things that you want. And this could even be centralized, but you could have individual distribution centers in different cities that allow you to dispatch that courier together with the split of champagne and the cappuccino or whatever. So thinking about this, This may be a little bit extreme, but this is a reality. All of the technology exists for this today. And it's a very real reality that customers might be open to this in the future. So if we think about this, what we've learned over the last 7 months, people have learned how to work remotely. Employers are no longer afraid of remote work, and they're learning how to adapt their management models, their employee engagement models, their performance metrics, and so on. People are doing it, right? People are already working remotely. So there's really no reason to bring everybody back and to bring everybody back all day, every day. So a lot of employers are going to have these hybrid models where they're bringing people back 20, 30% of the time to maintain social context, team dynamic, and the ability to form interpersonal relationships. And that is going to greatly affect the traffic that we have in let's say downtown city center, retail areas, office parks, all these different things. And that's also going to affect the retailers that were surviving on that traffic. So this is bad for office space. It's bad for city centers. It's bad for retailers and restaurants and so on, because people will be spending, a large percentage of the population will be spending more time at home. So the three things that are really important here are social context, building personal relationships, and team dynamics. Now, what we're going to see, we believe, is a lot more collaboration space. If people are only coming to work for social context, team dynamic, and to build interpersonal relationships, they don't really need individual desks everywhere. What they need are spaces where they can collaborate and work in groups and so on. So this will change the nature of let's say, office properties, but also we're going to see a lot of different behavior from shopping. So people have learned to buy online. And some of us like it. I have to say, I really enjoy pushing a button and having it arrive the next day or in the next 2 days. And if it's not something that I need absolutely right now, I'm okay with that. I'm okay that it comes in a day or 2 days or 3 days, and it's really no big deal. If it's something that I absolutely need right now, okay, there are retailers that deliver faster, or maybe I'll get up off my butt and go somewhere to buy it. But in general, I think the majority of people have become very comfortable with buying online, and even huge segments that have never bought online in the past. So this is going to be a huge difference, and we're going to see a lot of behavior that's quite different. So I think in the future, we're going to see retailers that need a lot less storage space, and I think we're going to see more behavior around try on, buy online. Like, hey, I happen to be in the store, I tried that on, I'll think about it for a day or two, and then maybe I'll order it online. Or we'll see a lot of stuff that's like try on and have it delivered, because I don't want to carry stuff around all day. I'm here to have a good time and so on. So we might see retailers that start looking more like showrooms and need less space for storage. We might see more kind of distribution centers pop up where they're dispatching all of these deliveries, but they're actually stored in a lower cost environment. Some stores might not have an option to buy directly in the store, and we'll probably see a lot of reformatting in shopping malls to free up space. Now, this is interesting because we could see a big shift from fulfilling the need to creating value for customers. So fulfilling the need is actually getting the product into my hands. Creating value is providing a variety of different environments where I can touch and feel and look and see and decide if I want something and so on, and then have a very efficient supply chain that's getting that delivery to me somewhere. And maybe I don't need to go to a mall and buy a bunch of stuff and carry it around. Maybe I go to a mall and select the things that I want, and then it's delivered to my house. Or maybe there's one pickup point where I pick up all of my orders right before I go to my car. So there's a lot of changing and reformatting that I think we'll see when we start talking more about creating value and less about just fulfilling the kind of boring need of I need to buy something and get it in a bag with a receipt and so on. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this hybrid model where people are trying things on in the physical environment, but not necessarily buying on site. Having things delivered, or maybe buying online at a later date and so on. And that's also going to change the way that stores are operating. Zara, a couple of years ago, launched a store, which I think was actually just completely backwards. So they launched the store where you buy online and then you go to the store to pick it up, which makes absolutely no sense for me. If I'm buying online, I want them to deliver it to me. Why do I want to buy something online and then get in the car and drive to a store and go pick something up? It makes no sense. I think the exact opposite is what we're going to see. Showrooms where you can try on, touch, feel, smell, do whatever, and then have it delivered at a later date, or have it at some pickup point right before you go to your car. Now, one of the things that we see as interesting here is the ability to combine these two things. Businesses are going to need more collaboration space. Retailers might need less space because they won't have to store as many things on location. This makes an interesting collaboration for shopping centers. Shopping centers might have more free space. Maybe they should design that free space as collaboration space for businesses who don't necessarily need office space, but if they're going to bring their employees into some environment, it would be great if that environment also had retailers and restaurants and entertainment and things like that, so that those employees can kill several birds with one stone while they're also satisfying that need for social context, team dynamic, and interpersonal relationships. So this could be a very interesting vision for shopping centers to think about this combined space and maybe bringing in the collaboration space into the shopping center environment and creating this new form of ecosystem that's very different from what shopping centers looked like in the past. Just an idea, but we really believe that it could be interesting. One other thing, and this is my last little section here, one other thing that's kind of interesting is this pandemic has really pushed what we call the evolution of business models. So businesses around the globe have been going through an evolution for some time now, with the evolution of business models taking us from balance sheet production type environments to product-centric business models, to customer-centric business models, and now relationship-centric business models. And the relationship-centric business models are quite interesting because if we think about, okay, product-centric, the mentality is how do I improve my production and get it out to the largest possible audience, right? A customer-centric form of thinking is, what is my customer trying to achieve and how do I help him or her to achieve this goal? And what I was just talking about with this value mindset of how do we create value for the customer, this is much less like the old retail style, how do I push product out to the largest number of customers? This new mindset is, what is my customer trying to achieve and how do I help them to achieve that goal? The relationship-centric side of it is, if my customers have needs that pop up often, how do I participate in those cyclical purchasing patterns and make the overall cyclical nature of purchases easier? So this is quite interesting. Globally, we look right about here right now, but there are some really interesting examples of companies using relationship-centric tactics, pricing models, redesigning their offerings, and so on to become relationship-centric. So my iPhone is purchased on an iPhone upgrade program. So I pay a monthly fee. Every year I get a new phone. As soon as they come out, I send my old phone back by mail, and that's it. I don't think about buying phones anymore because every year, as soon as a new one comes out, I have the freshest, newest phone out there, and I feel great. I pay a monthly fee, and Apple Care Plus Plus is included. So if it gets broken or stolen, I get a new phone, no questions asked. So this type of model is great, and Apple really used this to manipulate the cyclical nature of purchases. So an average Apple customer in the past got a new iPhone every 2 years. With the iPhone upgrade program, now these customers get a new iPhone every year. Considering that the iPhone and iPhone sales are the largest single driver of Apple's share price, that makes perfect sense why Apple would want to speed up the cyclical nature of iPhone purchases. Another really great example is Cadillac. Cadillac, they started this in New York. As far as I know, they're expanding into other large cities. But what they did was create a huge car park and put a bunch of different kinds of Cadillacs in there. And they sell a subscription, access to the car park. So for $1,500 a month, you can choose whatever car you want. Everything's included, the car, the insurance, the service, whatever. And you can change cars 18 times per year. 18 times per year you can change cars. It's wild, right? Another really fun example is Massage Envy. So Massage Envy is a wellness salons, we can call them, because they're not just about massage. They also have facials and stretching and some fitness type things and so on. But they have over 1,100 of these salons, and they're all based on these kind of monthly membership packages. So the more you pay, the more is included. The more you pay, the more discounts you get on anything that's above what you purchased in your package, and so on. Really interesting. Another one, Nike just launched the Adventure Club. For anybody that has kids, their feet grow. And unfortunately, kids need new shoes a lot more often than adults do. And so Nike just put together a subscription model where you can have 4, 6, or 12 pairs of shoes per year come to you for a monthly fee. And there's a whole catalog that you choose from, and they're kind of personalized and done in these fun packages and so on. And you can give back the old shoes and they will recycle them and repurpose the materials, or they'll use them for charity programs and so on. So really great program, and it's even socially responsible. So that's fun. And this is probably my favorite example, which is underwear on a subscription. And I'll tell you right away, they don't take the old pairs back. But this is one of my favorite examples, really, because they've satisfied a number of different elements of what we look for in relationship-centric business models. So this was about a year and a half ago, maybe. Probably closer, about a year and a half ago. I was on Instagram and this ad popped up, and I thought, well, this is my business. I have to do this kind of thing. So I signed up for it. You sign up for 1, 2, or 3 pairs of underwear every 1, 2, or 3 months. And then they ask you a bunch of questions about your likes and dislikes and what you prefer style-wise and visually and so on. And so I signed up for it, and I got the first package, and I thought, well, it's interesting. They kind of came close to what I usually would wear, I guess. And then a couple of weeks later, 3 weeks later, I got a survey from them saying, please answer these questions. It's very important for us to understand how to better choose for you. And so they asked me, it was like 13 different questions, very intimate questions, right? About support and comfort and things like that. And I thought, well, this is really interesting. Why did they wait 3 weeks? And then it came to me, okay, they probably waited 3 weeks so that I had time to wear them, wash them, and wear them again, so that I had a decent opinion of the quality and so on. And then at the end of the survey, there was a message that came up saying, thank you, we'll try to guess better for you in the future. Now, this is something that we call a learning relationship. And it's one of the tenets of relationship centricity is not only that it becomes a mutually beneficial relationship, but that we learn with each interaction. They're learning more about me that allows them to better choose, better service, better customize their offering for me as an individual. So with that learning relationship, the more they learn about me and the better they're able to meet my needs, my preferences, my behavior, and so on, the less chance there is for some competitor to wiggle their way in there, because the competitor won't know anything about me, but this business already does. Another really interesting thing about relationship-centric offerings is the learning relationship and the ability to monetize other categories. So after a couple of months, I think it was after fourth or the fifth purchase package that I got from them, I got an email saying, hey, your next package is coming up. You wouldn't happen to need socks, would you? And it turns out I needed socks. So now I have 2 subscriptions, one to underwear and one to socks. And I'm wondering what the next one is going to be, and so on. Now, this is really all I have for you today. But I wanted to kind of share again my optimism, because I really think if we take the time to consider the positive aspects of this global pandemic and what the changes in behavior, preferences, and needs of customers are going to be, we can actually be way ahead of the others that are probably ignoring these things and just hoping stuff will go back to the way it was. Personally, I think the reality of things going back to the way they were exactly is quite low. But I think that those businesses that are really taking note and studying and looking at how customers are behaving and thinking about the new models, these are the opportunities, and this is what makes me optimistic. Happy to see all of you guys. Please feel free to reach out anytime. You can always find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We have a pretty deep YouTube channel with a lot of videos. So if you're interested in other content from us, you can find us on the Senteo YouTube channel. And I have to say this, yesterday was our 15-year anniversary. So it turns out yesterday, 15 years ago, was when I had the idea to start Senteo, and it's really been a fantastic experience. And we couldn't have done any of it without the great and unique relationships that we've had with people. So thank you for your time, and hope to cross paths in the future. Oh, also one other plug. There's an interview tomorrow where I interview Joe Pine, who's the author of The Experience Economy. So you won't want to miss that. It's a short interview, but very interesting. So all of you have a great day, and it's been a pleasure.